Now, I would like to invite Liat Ben-Zur to join me on stage. Come on up. Yeah. So Liat helped launch the world's first GPT-4 powered product at Microsoft with Bing Chat, led AI transformations at Philips and Qualcomm. She also grew a $13 billion portfolio of business during her time at Microsoft. That's a small amount. And now she advises boards and leadership teams on AI strategy through LBZ Advisors. So welcome, Liat. It's so good to have you.
Thank you.
So, Liat, just to start out, how did you get into AI? It seems like you were kind of one of the earlier ones to dive into this, and what led you to what you're doing now?
Well, I've kind of always been on the bleeding edge of tech. First 20 years of my career was at Qualcomm, and we were driving the transition from 2G to 3G, 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, and then when every phone already had Qualcomm in it, then the question became, how do we get everything else in the world connected, which was the early days of the Internet of Things. Drove that globally.
God, I feel like I haven't heard the Internet of Things in a long time.
Yeah, that was new at one point. And then the CEO of Philips recognized that that's exactly what they needed to do, was add connectivity to a lot of their devices from the hospital to the home. And so was asked to move my family to Europe and spent the next 5 years helping Philips with their digital transformation and add connectivity to everything from connected toothbrushes that are pretty common now, to breast pumps, to kitchen appliances, to COPD and elderly care devices in the hospital. So that was really interesting. And then I was lucky enough to be at Microsoft where, like you said, we launched the first GPT-4 product even before OpenAI launched its own GPT-4 product. We were working with them in the early days. And I had kind of an aha moment. As we were working on that, I realized that this new technology requires you to completely rethink how you use search and the internet. And if this could kind of redefine the internet, which is the fabric of our daily lives, it's going to pretty much redefine every other industry. So I wanted to get out there and help as many other companies get their arms around this new thing called generative AI and figure out not just how do I use it, how do I build a strategy around it, but how do I actually drive impact, like business impact with it. So I started on a new kind of chapter in my career where I started my business LBZ Advisory. And I help now companies everything from genomics and healthcare to social impact and financial to B2B SaaS companies figure out their AI strategy.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's very fun actually.
So how is AI changing how business leaders are operating right now?
One of the observations I have is AI is absolutely collapsing the distance between data and decisions. And that really changes leadership expectations. And I see like 3 big shifts that are hitting a lot of leaders between the eyes. And the first one is that speed beats structure. So what I mean by that is AI is moving so fast. If your organization has 3, 4, 5 layers of approvals, it's a liability because your competitors are going to make decisions and move and test things while you guys are still debating, should we move to the left or should we move to the right? The second big insight shift that I'm seeing is that insights beats title. What I mean by that is that like a lot of the really sharpest insights that I'm seeing in these boardrooms right now are not coming from the person with the highest title or the most senior person. It used to be, and this was really common at Microsoft, people kind of deferred what we called them hippos in the room would say, the highest paid, kind of most senior person.
Did you say hippos?
Yeah, that's what
I love that.
I was like, I don't know if that was an internal name or if everyone uses that term, but it was really fascinating kind of cultural observation. You just always refer to the highest paid, most senior person. And what I'm seeing right now in a lot of these boardrooms, you'll have the board, you'll have the CEO, you'll have their leadership team, and then you have a relatively junior person coming in who's closer to the data, who understands how to use the AI, who understands how to like ask the right questions and pull out the right insights. And they are able to completely shift the conversation with the insights that they bring out because they know how to use the AI, because they understand the data, in a way that even the most senior people in the room give reverence to. And I think that's a really big power dynamic shift in leadership that a lot of folks are barely aware is happening, but it's happening. And then the last kind of big shift I think hitting leaders between the eye is judgment now beats certainty. So one of the observations I have of kind of what I call old school leadership is it rewarded confidence. The person the leader was always the confident, had the answers, confidently shared, this is what we're gonna do. There was this air of like confidence as part of leadership. And it turns out that AI could hallucinate as confidently as the most confident man that you work with. And so, now I think instead of feeling like you have all the answers, because AI has a lot of answers. They're not always right, but it has a lot of answers. Now the skill is, are you able to know when to trust the machine, when to question the machine, and how to make judgments and decisions when you don't have all the answers, and recognizing you don't have all the answers. Because the problem is, a lot of times AI comes in and says, yeah, it's clear. Clearly you should turn to the left. That's the clear answer. Recognizing it might not be as clear as AI confidently tells you, and still having the courage to kind of be able to make those decisions. So I think that judgment is brand new. So the best leaders that I'm seeing right now for AI aren't necessarily the loudest. They're the ones that know how to ask the sharpest questions and know when to question the answers they get.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about some of those skills that AI leaders need to have. I mean, you've sort of talked about some of them, but if you're a leader in the room, hypothetically, what should you be thinking about?
Well, I think you guys are reading a lot of it in the press right now. Everyone talks about like adaptability, and you got to be able to like reskill and learn really fast. I agree with all that. I think that's right. It's a bit shallow. I think the truth is that AI is kind of changing the fabric of leadership. And there's a bunch of these deeper skills that I think are less obvious, but when I am observing who I want to have lead big AI projects in different companies, or when I observe who are the best leaders of big AI projects that I'm working with, some of the skills that I see are sense-making in chaos is one.
Sense-making in chaos?
Yeah. And what I mean by that is, again, like AI floods us with information. So much information. We have so much data. We have so many newsletters. Yours is by far one of the best.
Absolutely.
But we really do have so much information flooding us every day. I mean, just on AI alone, the amount of information I'm getting daily is just overwhelming. The ability to pull signal from the noise with all of the data and information that AI floods us with is actually a critical skill that not everybody has. And again, to identify what's missing. So to be able to recognize, okay, this is really interesting, but I think there's an aspect that isn't even in the story that we need to dig into here. That's what I mean by sense-making in chaos. Power fluency. So, AI, we said, is shifting power. It's no longer just at the top. So what that means now is, in order to be a really great leader in AI, you need to learn how to navigate hierarchies. You need to be able to recognize that some of the best wisdom and insights is not going to be from your senior vice president that reports to you or the director that reports to them. It might be from junior folks. So being able to invite challenges from below and listen and not feel threatened. And also the ability to read the room. So AI can, again, like make sense of all the data presented, but being able to read the power in the room and understand how that influences decisions that you might make, it's not going to do that. And then the third kind of skill, I think, is judgment, kind of human grounding, which I know a lot of folks talk about how AI can optimize, but it can't be human. I couldn't agree more. I think empathy, ethics, judgment, those are things that AI is not going to replicate. It is definitely a need for all leaders to master AI tools. But more important than mastering the tools, any fool could master tools, is are you able to master these human skills that you have, like judgment, like discernment, the ability to question. And I think those right now, when I work with lots of leaders across different disciplines and different verticals, these are the most common skills that I see on repeat for the ones who are getting the job done really well.
You know, it's really interesting, Liat, because you're talking about skills, leadership skills that are not new. Like these are skills that a lot of leaders already possess, but you're sort of it's a different approach, right? Where your job as a leader is to sort of question the information that you're getting and make informed decisions, but say, I don't necessarily agree with that outcome. And what you're saying here is that AI can be so confident that sometimes leaders are deferring to it when they shouldn't?
We're seeing that in a big way. Not only are leaders deferring to it, but there's a bunch of studies that are coming out now that are saying, like, our IQ is potentially going down because we are not challenging ourselves enough, because it's just so easy to ask the machine and be passive players in our life and have the machine do a lot more of the thinking. So, yeah, like it's becoming even more and more important to have some of those skills.
That's kind of scary. Okay. So I love this term that you use, leaders forged in the margins. This is something that I've heard you talk about before. I'd love to hear you just talk a little bit about why leaders, as you describe, who are forged in the margins are so important right now.
All right, so this is kind of interesting. So I've been doing a lot of this work with a lot of different companies, and I started observing that the leaders that are most ready for the AI era tend to be the ones that have been marginalized and sidelined the most. And that's the premise of my book. The book is called The Bias Advantage, Why AI Needs the Leaders It Wasn't Trained to See, which I'm currently working on. And the whole premise is that a lot of the most kind of underrepresented leaders, the ones that were not invited to the tables and the rooms were not designed for them, they had to build their own playbook to get in the room. And the survival skills that you built in order to fight your way to get to that table are exactly the skills that will create your competitive edge in an AI world today. And so I'll give you a couple of examples of the skills that I'm observing. The first one is ethical radar. When you've lived on the downside of bias, you tend to not just spot harm, but you can kind of smell it before it comes. And so when you know that you're in charge of and working on an AI project that is going to decide who gets a loan or who gets hired or who gets flagged or who gets certain healthcare benefits, you need to sense if something is missing before it shows up in the data. If by the time it shows up in the data, where most leaders typically will see it and start to flag it, it's already too late. There's been harm. So that kind of ethical radar is one example. The other one is pattern sensing. AI is great at pattern sensing. It can crunch data to no end. But again, it can't read the silence in a room. It can't identify what's missing from the data set. So it's going to tell you, this is clearly the conclusion and the best recommendation based on the data set. But it's not mentioning that the data set was fully biased based on the last 20 years of bias it pulled from the internet.
Wait, there's bias on the internet?
Yeah, I know. Shocking.
Who knew?
So that's what I mean by pattern sensing. Radical empathy.
Radical empathy.
This is not the fuzzy, soft, kind of feel-good, oh, you're so sweet, I really think you're nice. Like, that's not what I mean by radical empathy. Radical empathy is about recognizing who's being ignored, recognizing whose voices are missing. And that applies, and you see this in boardrooms where, you know, I sit in rooms where several people dominate the conversation, and that's just the way it is. And I sit in rooms where several people dominate the conversation, and there's a leader that every single time turns around and says, hey, you know, X, we'd like to hear from you. Tell me a little bit about what you're thinking. Why? Tell me about what you're thinking. I haven't heard from you. I'd really love to hear your voice. That's how it happens kind of IRL in real life. In AI, it happens with data, right? So kind of recognizing what are the data sets that are missing that might change the outcomes, pressure testing. Another way that it happens in AI is thinking through not first order outcomes, but second and third order outcomes. So for example, we might build an AI algorithm that absolutely proves that we can drive 30% more efficiency gains in a certain sector. And if that's the outcome we're optimizing for, we're gonna roll it out. But it turns out that by getting 30% more efficiency gains in this sector, a third and fourth order effect is that we're actually only inviting certain kinds of people into the customer pool and completely leaving out another set of people from the customer pool, which was not our intention, but it's an artifact. If you're not asking those questions, if you're not looking at their third and fourth order impacts, it's just gonna happen, and you'll find it later. I think there's a lot of examples of this with Facebook that optimize for first order effects of retention and engagement, and we know many stories of side effects of what happened there. Influence without authority. So what's really interesting about AI is it cuts across every silo and every function. It's in marketing, it's in finance, it's in customer support, it's in engineering, it's in product. Every single function uses AI in different ways, can use AI, should be using AI in different ways. If you grew up as a leader where you've always been kind of crowned with a title and that's empowered you to have the authority, you're a bit of a liability in this new world, because in this new world, you have to be able to look across all of these different silos and influence without authority. If you've grown up not often given the title and having to earn that by influencing without authority because you weren't given the formal authority, you actually have built the skill that AI really needs. And it's one of the, it's really interesting, it's one of the points where I see AI kind of gets capped. So you can see AI adding value in a lot of companies when it just has to work in one silo. Like, hey, I use this new marketing AI tool and it's helped my marketing team save 30% or reduce CAC by 40%. But the real power of AI is when you can start to work across boundaries and you can connect marketing and sales and tear down some walls and remove some processes. That requires leadership that knows how to work across the different VPs and SVPs. And so influence without authority is critical to unlock the power of AI. And then finally, resilience on repeat. Again, like the one thing I can tell you for sure is every AI system at some point will break. Like that's the experiments fail. And if they don't fail, you're probably not experimenting well enough, right? Because you really want to be pushing the envelope. So disruption is your default, and your ability to handle that in a resilient way as a leader is really key. And what I'm noticing is the leaders who have had to prove themselves again and again and again in every single room and aren't even fazed by it because they've had 20 or 30 years of their career where they had to show resilience just to survive because they keep getting knocked down, they don't even blink an eye at some of the consistent failures that are happening. So the leaders we've overlooked for a very long time are showing up with a lot of these skills that are absolutely critical and often not discussed. In all the AI literature you're reading, you don't hear a lot of people talking about this stuff. But these are the subtle differences that I observe when I look at all of these AI projects that are successful and the AI leaders that are running them.
Fascinating. So when you are talking to business leaders right now, what are you instructing them to think about? What action items are you asking them to take away?
Well, and I would leave this with all of you too. I think it's really important that you don't see AI as a threat, and that you see it as the opportunity that it is. I think there's a massive leadership gap. I think right now almost all of the AI, big AI projects, and almost all of the big AI conferences are pretty dominated with a very narrow cohort, shall we say. It's not the most diverse.
That's a very
cohort.
polite way to say it. Yeah.
But AI needs a new type of leadership, and I have a feeling that it's a lot of the skills that are actually in this room. Every single industry is being disrupted by AI. If you're not in tech and you're intimidated by this, don't be. It's disrupting food service. It's disrupting retail. It's disrupting healthcare. It's disrupting industrial, oil. It's disrupting every industry in various ways. And you can choose to either be an AI leader or a passenger during this time. But I really encourage you to take your lived experience, bring it to the table, and be an AI leader, because that's exactly what is necessary right now. And in my mind, I have no doubt AI is going to shape the future. It's already reshaping the future. What is still not clear is who is going to shape AI. And I think the women in this room and many others who have been kind of outsiders and not always represented are exactly the folks that we need in the room to help shape the future of AI.
What a wonderful call to action. Liat Ben-Zur, everyone. Thank you so much, Liat.
Thank you.